All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for another clan war. This time it is RTK versus EC. And here is the lineup for today's matches. It is going to be following the same format as all of the previous ones. So for starting off, we're going to have Vicious Satsuma versus the green one. It will be Greenskin versus Norska, and then we'll follow up with three more 1v1s, being Ulrich Kroll versus Zalo, and then we'll have Lumiere versus Azrael of Astora, Prussian Prince versus Senior Turu, and then we'll get into the 2v2s after that, which we'll have Tex and Kafka versus Jimmy and Sebas, and we'll have Prussian Prince and Majutsu versus Kropep and Azrael of Astora, and then we'll have our final 3v3 matchup being Wicked Pirate, Majutsu, Tex versus Kropep, Francis, and Senior Turu. And that will be our lineup for today's matches. Each of the first 1v1s will be a 1 point per match, and then each of the 2v2s will be worth 2 points, and the final 3v3 will be worth 3. So we'll get right on over to our lobby as we have everyone loaded on in. We are just waiting on one more spectator to hop on in, and then we'll be able to get things kicked off. Alright, so I should be able to invite our last. Okay, so I believe he is in. Oh, and we are ready to go. Alright, just double checking that I got the map correct. So yeah, this first one is going to be on Schwarzhofen, and then we'll switch on over to a few new maps as well. And let's get on into it. All right. Make sure we get all of our camera settings adjusted. So for this matchup, we have, of course, Vicious Satsuma leading his greenskins. That is his probably his strongest faction. And we have the green one is going to be playing Norska. Generally, I would say that this is a greenskin favored matchup, though if my last tournament is anything to go off of, Norska did fairly well against greenskins in those quarterfinals and finals, and we are loaded in. So we'll go over what the greenskins have brought first. So it is pretty classic of Vicious Satsuma bringing a lot of skirmish and mobility. So we do have 3 Forest Goblin Spider Riders, as well as Forest Goblin Spider Riders, just the regular variant, for support. We do have the 8 Peak Loonies as well for the front line, and then we're going to mix things up with some Orc Boys and some Orc Biggins as well, kind of filtered in there for a little bit of stopping power. We do have a Goblin Big Boss, but the main feature of this army is going to be the double Arachnarok Spiders, and we are going to be led by Wurzag. We'll go over what he is bringing. He has Gaze of Mork. He also has his Bonewood Staff. And then for the rest of his spells, he has Brain Bursta, which is good against kind of the low armored infantry that the Norskins do have. And we have Get Back here as well, providing a little bit of leadership buff to the surrounding units, which is very good because that is one thing that the Greenskins will kind of struggle with in general. And we also have Effigy of Degit, which is a very good net ability, which pretty much will stop any unit in its tracks, and usually that can be followed up with potentially a Fotogork, but he does not have that for today. But for the Norskins, we do have a bit of skirmish as well, as we have some Marauder Horsemen as well, 3 of those in the front line. And then for the infantry department, we do have some just Marauders going to be spread out across the front line as well. And we actually have some champions as well, 2 of those. A very good unit there. Maybe a little overkill in particular against the Greenskins, but they will provide a nice bit of staying power, and something that if the Greenskins don't have any armor piercing, it will struggle to push through that particular unit. For the rest of the units, we do have some Skin Wolves mixed in with some Norse Trolls, actually an interesting pick. The Trolls do have low leadership, but they are some monstrous infantry. Some more armored Skin Wolves on the flanks, and then we have a Shaman Sorcerer of Fire, bringing Fireball, Burning Head, and Wolfric the Wanderer, Seafang, and Hunter of Champions. We also have the Beasts of Tashnar as well. So, but pretty straightforward Norskin build, as they do provide a lot of maybe just a nice wide front line. The Norskin Trolls will be interesting. They'll have to see if their leadership is going to be a factor here. They are easy to break, and the mobility is definitely in the favor of the Greenskins, I feel like, with their 6 mobile units here. And the Horsemen really aren't known for their, I guess, staying power. They have a little lower leadership, and they do take damage fairly quickly. So we'll see how the Greenskins are able to handle that. Right now, the Greenskins are going to opt to take the hill, as their skirmishers are going to kind of poke away and do as much damage as they can earlier on. And we'll see how the Norskins' mobility does favor here, as they are kind of pushing in, getting some nice shots in onto the Orc Boys and the Orc Biguns. They are low armor, so they will be taking a fair amount of damage themselves if they continue to take this sustained fire. But we do have some Force Goblin Spider Riders pushing out to kind of screen them out and push them a little farther away. I guess the big kind of X factor for the skirmishing phase is going to be the Norskin Warhounds and the Beasts of Tashnar, who are anti-large. So that could provide a nice bit of help against, especially, I guess, the Force Goblin Spider Riders. I think they should be able to win fairly handedly against those units. But other Greenskins will be moving up to face the Norskins, as kind of the skirmishing is really kind of being a kind of a stalemate at this point. Neither side really gaining the upper advantage. And that Ragnarok Spider will absolutely be able to just tank all of the shots from these Marauder Horsemen, and they will be able to push them out very quickly. A nice Brain Burster going down into the middle of these Marauders. We get a nice decent amount of damage, and a Fireball raining in from the Shaman Sorcerer of Fire, connecting with the Ragnarok Spider. Not doing a whole lot of damage, but all damage will be useful against these 2 big units here, as they will kind of struggle to deal with them a bit. Though I think the Norskin Wolves, that are the armored, and the Trolls to an extent, but the Skin Wolves, I think, will be the best use against these Ragnarok Spiders. And now we do have the infantry engaging. We have Marauders charging in. Greenskins actually kind of pulling back a little bit, trying to pull apart the Norskins as much as they can, getting them to take unfavorable matchups as best they can. So far, only these 1 Marauders are engaged with these Orc Boys, and now they're getting the support of both of the Ragnarok Spiders, as they kind of are mostly just screening out these Marauder Horsemen. But a nice little spell going down, connecting with that Shaman Sorcerer, doing a nice bit of damage, and a nice Seafang as well going through. I believe it went right on through these Orc Boys, but one of the Marauders has routed off, and that is going to leave these Norskin Trolls without any infantry support, and that is going to be really critical. These champions do need to get into this engagement as quickly as they can. These Norskin Trolls do not do well when they are alone without kind of any support, and we also have the Norskin Wolves, though, coming in, doing some nice bit of work, though they are unsupported, as you do have the Norskin Trolls are going to be terrified, and they will be kind of routing, at least initially. Ragnarok Spiders are going to be pulling back, as those Skin Wolves are going to be putting on a little bit of pressure, and they'll try and avoid them as much as they can, letting their infantry do as much work as they are able to do. Once again, we have the Norse controls going to be charging in. Again, I think that's a little bit early, as these Marauder champions are going to be kept away from them. These Orc Big Guns will be able to tank the damage, at least for the time being, but being sandwiched between these Armored Skin Wolves and these Marauder champions, they will not last all too long. But these Norse controls do need to pull out, as they finally do, and that is a very good idea. They do not want to be engaged too long in that particular match without support. Another Fireball doing a bit more work against the Arachnarok Spider, doing some nice chipping damage. But so far, it looks like the Norskins are still pulling ahead, maybe a little bit in the balance of power, but I feel like their front line is starting to slowly waver more and more, as you have the Marauders just slowly getting whittled down, and there's been a few units of the Greenskins that have also been falling back, but now we have some more of the Warhounds getting through the gaps in the formations, kind of getting on top of the mobility. But I think the big targets that these Norskins are going to be able to do well against, but we do have a nice burning head right through 3 units of Greenskins right here. I was going to say that and then followed up by another Sea Fang, so that is going to do a ton of damage to that little pocket of infantry. But I was going to say before that the Greenskins, the Norskins, their big units are going to be the Skin Wolves and the Trolls to an extent, but really the 2 Skin Wolves and the Marauder champions are going to be the big stopping powers and the X factor for the Norskins, as they do continue to take a little more and more advantage in the balance of power. But a nice Rain Burster going right into the middle of all of that, as the Arachnarok Spiders have taken a decent amount of damage themselves. We do have that Shaman Sorcerer trying to screen out these Force Goblin Spider Riders from getting in to support, though he wasn't really able to block things up quite enough here. Otherwise, we do have a bit of a rout here going on, as one of the Armored Skin Wolves and the Norse Controls are going to be routing, and on top of that, the Marauder Horsemen have shattered. We do still have these 2 units, but these Force Goblin Spider Riders are going to try and push them away, as that Shaman Sorcerer has taken quite a bit of damage, and actually the balance of power has gone into the Greenskins' favor now with that massive rout. And if the Greenskins are able to push these units away, I know the Greenskins do still have quite a few units on the periphery. Another Brain Burster going down into the routing units of the Norskins, but this could be a disastrous mass rout from Norska to give the Greenskins that advantage here. The Trolls have come back, and we do have some units in the periphery on both sides just kind of being forgotten for the time being, though there's really not a whole lot back there. Another Fireball arcing its way straight to that Arachnarok Spider, connecting and doing a bit of damage. But Wulfric is going to be taking quite a bit of damage himself, as the Arachnarok Spider and the Goblin Big Boss is still at full health, as well as Wurzeg. But here comes another Sea Fang, going to be going right down the line of these Force Goblin Spider Riders, making really good contact with both of those units. Really good cast there, routing them both off and leaving that Arachnarok Spider a little bit more isolated, though these Skin Wolves are fairly beat up themselves. Now Wulfric is going to be trying to pull out of this engagement, as Wurzeg, the Arachnarok Spider, and the Goblin Big Boss all kind of push him in. These Marauder Horsemen trying to screen them out, and they will be able to accomplish that, at least for the time being, though they won't be lasting too long themselves, as the other Arachnarok Spider does get a nice charge into these Skin Wolves, doing a nice bit of damage off on that charge. And this unit is down to 10 units right now, and they are taking a ton of damage as they are isolated, and they will be routing fairly soon. But we do have a nice Burning Hedge is going to be going right through the lines. I didn't connect as well as some of the other casts. These Orc Big Guns were able to pull out quickly enough, but still doing a nice bit of damage on top of that. Beasts of Tashnar coming in very, very low themselves, and they will probably be wavering and routing and shattering even right off of that charge. That Shaman Sorcerer is going to be trying to sustain, but a Vindictive Glare going to be going in and just down. Actually, Gaze Mork will be going down and finishing off the caster, as the Greenskins do seem to be taking the advantage in this late game. And it looks like army losses are going to be triggering for Norska, and the Greenskins will take the first match, putting RTK up on the scoreboard first. So we take a look at the after-battle reports. The Marauder champions did do a pretty decent staying power, but I think the Norskins, they struggled a bit with how they engaged the Greenskins. Their front line was able to get picked apart kind of one at a time instead of kind of trying to either group up and focus one side or engage more all at the same time. And then some of the Norscan trolls also were kind of engaged without their infantry support early on, but they did have a very decent early engagement, getting those armored skin wolves onto the Ragnarok spiders, and that is a good pick against them, especially the armored variant with the armor that the Ragnarok spiders have. And the skin wolves with their anti-large is also fairly good in that particular battle. But a very good first match, and we should be getting straight on into the second one. So the green one is up, so the next one will be Ulrich Rahl and Zalo as well. This will be Empire versus Greenskins. So we'll have the Greenskins on the field for the next match. So we will get those people right on in. Actually, we're going to actually wait on Ulrich Rahl because it looks like he is going to be out for just a bit. So we will actually go into the next match, which I believe Prussian Prince also wanted to go earlier. So we might be doing Prussian Prince versus Senior Turu for the next one. And in the meantime, we will get the scoreboard updated. Oh, actually looks like JP is already joined in. Yes, yeah, JP is in as a sub. So, okay, so we will be going with J Phoenix, who is going to be taking Lumiere's spot, because he is having some keyboard issues. So we'll have Azrael of Astora come in next. So this will be Norska versus Beastmen for this particular matchup. So we do have, oops, get some. All right, so we'll get an invite off to him. All right. And yes, for this Norska and Beastman matchup, it will be on Troll Country, which will favor both of these Rush factions quite a bit. I would imagine that is why both clans did decide to use Norska and Beastman on this particular map. It is favorable for both of them. Though I think in this particular matchup, Norska does have a bit of an advantage, I would say. With actually, I think it's more than just a bit. I think Norska is fairly favored in this matchup. I think I've only done this matchup a few times myself. But with like the skin wolves and just kind of the large mammoths and units like that, it does prove a little difficult for the beastmen to handle at times. But beastmen do have a lot of tools themselves in the form of spawn, and kind of the centaurs do fairly decent work with their throwing axes. All right. So we'll see how Jay Phoenix is able to actually handle the Norskins. I'm not really sure how often he plays this particular faction because he is subbing in for Lumiere. But he's a fairly capable player. I know he definitely would favor using his Skaven, but I think he should do fairly well in this matchup. Azrael is ready, as is Jay Phoenix. So we will hop right on into this second match of the Clan War, technically the third on the list. And we will load right on in and should be treated to a fantastic second round battle. Alright, looks like armies are loaded in, so we will go over the Norskin army first. Looks like we have some Marauders with some Marauder Berserkers kind of mixed in to this lineup. So we have two Marauders, one of which being, the third one being the Icehorn Marauders, and they do have their immune to psychology and perfect vigor. We do have a couple Marauder Berserkers as well, and then the skirmishing force of 3 Marauder Horsemen on top of the Beast of Tashnar and Norskin Ice Wolves with their Frostbite. But the big unit here is going to be the Quad Skid Wolves, and they will do very good work against kind of the mobility of the Beastmen, as well as some of the larger targets, such as the Minotaurs and Chaos Spawn. We also are going to be led by Throg, and he is just going to be bringing his Wintertooth Crown to provide a nice bit of leadership buff with that AoE Unbreakable. And then we have the Femur Ability to Fire with Fireball and Burning Head, which will do well against that low armored Beastmen front line. Now that will wrap up Norska, so let's kind of see what the Beastmen have brought for us. We do have quite a bit of mobility and large units, but the front line is going to be Ungor Spearman Herd, and then we also have the Koroks Man Rippers, the Vestigor Herd, so they will have anti-large armor piercing damage, so that will do quite a good work against kind of Skin Wolves and some of the other larger targets. There are no Fimir on the battle, so their armor piercing will be a little bit more wasted. But we do have some Ungor Spearman Herd for the rest, and then we have 2 Ungor Raiders, and then the big units are going to be Minotaurs with great weapons, 2 of those, and 2 Chaos Spawn. Mobility is going to be some Chaos Warhounds with poison, with Senegors, a pair of each on both sides. And that will be our armies, as both armies are going to be advancing. Jay Phoenix is going to be rotating his Marauder Horsemen off to the right side, and a Fireball will be arcing its way across the map, targeting this Bray Shaman of Beasts. The Bray Shaman of Beasts going to be bringing, of course, the transformation of Kadan, and then we have Morgur the Shadowgave with all his Chaos Spawn summons as well. So there's going to be a possibility of having 4 Chaos Spawn on the field at a time with both of those summons active. So currently these Marauder Horsemen just kind of plucking away some shots onto the fringe, as the Beastmen though are going to be kind of slowly advancing and repositioning themselves to kind of advance onto the Norskin forces. The Ungor Raiders have opened up onto these Marauder Berserkers, and Norskins, I think, at this point would do well to kind of advance. They don't want to be taking all these shots onto their unarmored, unshielded Marauder Berserkers. That is a very expensive unit, and they are taking quite a bit of damage already. But right now, these Marauder Horsemen are going to be kind of kiting away from the Senegors, and they do have a slightly less speed than the Senegors. The Senegors would eventually catch them with their 94 speed, and especially if these Chaos Warhounds with Poison, who also have 95 speed, catch up, that will slow them down even more. So JVH really does need to be pretty careful in that particular engagement, though the front line is underway. Chaos Spawn coming right on through, but here comes a fantastic Burning Head. Is going to be roasting these Ungor Spearmen, going right through the Man Rippers and into these Chaos Spawn and Minotaurs, doing a ton of damage, routing off those Ungor Spearmen herd on the battle. So that means those Chaos Spawn are now going to be isolated, though they do have some more Ungor Spearmen coming in to support. We also have the Beast of Tashnar and Ice Wolves going to be rotating around. We do have one of the Feral Manticore summons on the field, so a lot of summoning from the Beastmen, and that will be what they try to pull off here. As Throg is kind of wading into the battle, doing a ton of damage to these Chaos Spawn, though that Feral Manticore is looking for that Fimir Balefine of Fire. Going to be getting on top of him. We do have Arcane Conduit popped in. I don't know if he brought Scroll of Shielding or not, though that Manticore can do quite a bit of damage, though those Fimir Balefine are fairly tanky themselves. So we'll see how well they're able to hold things off. We have some of the Skin Wolves getting engaged with the Senegors and Poison Warhounds, but we do have a rear charge from these Minotaurs, and that's going to make quick work of those Skin Wolves, and they are going to be stuck in, and they will be routing. There is no doubt about that. More shots going to be kind of plucking away. Looks like they are targeting these Senegors, and the second summon of Feral Manticore is going to be going down as well, as even these Skin Wolves are going to be routing off from that other unit, and one more summons. Both Chaos Spawn are also down, so a ton of summons are on the field right now for the Beastmen, and that balance power is definitely showing it. That is going to be a little inflated, as that Burning Head does clip through these units, doing quite a bit of work to these Ungor Raiders, as well as it kind of passes right on through, even maybe clipping these Ungor Spearmen. But we do have a nice catch by these Beasts of Tashnor, getting off these Senegors and these Chaos Warhounds. So they will be able to chase them off, though the other unit of Ice Trolls is going to be routing themselves. And the front line for the Norskins, though, is crumbling quite quickly, as Throg is being pushed off by all of these Chaos Spawn. He did have his Winter Tooth Crown on for a short time, trying to sustain, but with these anti-large from the Korok Man Rippers and these Chaos Spawn, which luckily just disintegrate in time, allowing Throg to at least pull out for the time being, though these Minotaurs are going to be quick on his tail, and it does look like the Beastmen do have a bit of an advantage here with all of their monstrous infantry, and I don't know if there's really any units that are left. We do have only 5 models of Skin Wolves here. I don't think the Norskins really have the tools left to deal with the Minotaurs, because there are still plenty of those left. We still have Morgar, who is a very tanky character in and of himself, and with Throg gone, there's just nothing really left for the Norskins to deal with what the Beastmen have. And I think this is going to go the way of the Beastmen for this second match. Yeah, at this point, all the Beastmen really need to do is group up all of their large units, so they do have all of their Minotaurs mixed up here, as well as their Chaos Spawn. And if they're mixed in with those Korok Man Rippers, there's going to be absolutely nothing that Norskin's going to be able to do, even if they use up all their ammo on these horsemen. One unit of Skin Wolves will not break that monstrous infantry blob. Yeah, the Senegors pushing off the Beast of Tashnar, the other anti-large unit that is left on the field. And yeah, I think it is only a matter of time before army losses take over, and the Beastmen will be taking the second match of the day. Horsemen getting a few charges in where they can, using up the last of their ammo, and there is army losses, and the Beastmen do finally take this second match. We'll update the scorecard real quick for that, and switch on over back to the after battle report, where you have the Minotaurs getting multiple chevrons, doing a lot of work there, lots of damage against Throg. All of those summons, I think, were just also so critical for the Beastmen. Having two Minotaurs, it's not two Minotaurs, two Feral Manicores and two Chaos Spawn all on the field at the same time. We're doing so much work, and those, yeah, the Skin Wolves just weren't able to keep up with that. I think they really needed to be maybe a little bit more conservative with them. Let their infantry work on the Beastmen infantry, and then especially keep Throg a little bit more safe as well, because, I mean, all of these Minotaurs with great weapons do so much damage. But a good second match, and we will get into our third. So the next one will be Prussian Prince, who is already in, and then his opponent will be Senior Turu. So I'll see if he was one of the ones that... No, I have Crowpep. So Senior Turu... Don't have an invite. Prussian Prince just... Okay, so Senior Turu is in. Prussian Prince may have just had to crash real quick, because it does look like he has just restarted Total War, so we will see him momentarily. And look at the map setup while we wait. So this one will be on Oakenhammer. And this will be a High Elf versus Dark Elf matchup. So a very classic matchup from the early days of Warhammer 2. So we'll see. Prussian Prince definitely handled his High Elves very, very well. And they usually have all the tools they need to deal with the Dark Elves. Though the Dark Elves have one particular unit, which is the Scourge Runner Chariots. Who the High Elves really don't have a good answer to, because with the Scourge Runner Chariots, you can't really skirmish with them. Anything that the High Elves have in terms of skirmishing, the Scourge Runners will just tear apart any chasing cavalry unit. So send an invite to Prussian again. Oh, there he is. So Prussian Prince already has his army all set. And I know he is itching to get back into that ever-chosen qualifier, which is going on at the same time. Third time's a charm. Crashed 2 times while joining. Well, if that continues, we might have to restart that lobby. Hold up. Looks like we are... We did have another spectator that was watching with us, so we'll see if he's still... Oh, there he is. He's back in as well. So we might be having a little bit of lobby issue. So both of us, everyone is here, and we will get on in to the next battle. Alright, for those who have joined recently, this is our third matchup for this clan war. We'll have one more 1v1 after this, as both of our contestants are readied up. All the spectators are still in, and we will load right on into this next one. Alright. So a reminder for those who are participating today, the 2v2s and 3v3 I would advise everyone to drop your graphic settings down to medium, at least to medium before we join that up. I will rehost that lobby as I drop my settings down just so we can avoid as much lag as possible. But we'll go over the armies that we have lined up. We do have the Dark Elves first, and they have a line of Dread Spears, and we also have some Hargoneth Executioners, 2 of those mixed in as well. They'll do very well against potentially Silverin Guard that could be on the field. Otherwise, the Spearmen just kind of there for some chaff. We do have some range units with Dark Shards with shields, a decent armor-piercing missile unit, and then we have some Cold One Knights, some Dark Riders, and another unit of Cold One Knights on the flank, as well as some Slaanesh Harvesters, and a third unit of Cold One Knights, and we are going to be led by the Supreme Sorceress of Death, who is going to be bringing Spirit Leech and the Fate of Buna, as well as the Opal Amulet. So pretty straightforward Dark Elf build. Hargoneth Executioners, of course, will do very well against Silverin Guard, and quite a bit of mobility in the form of the Cold One Knights, looking to overwhelm the High Elves. And the High Elves, they do have a front line of Spearmen, just the normal Spearmen, so fairly light on that front line, though. We do have some Illyrian Reaver Archers for skirmish, and 2 Dragon Princes as well. We'll see if the 2 Dragon Princes are enough to deal with the 5 cavalry units that the Dark Elves have brought. But we do have 4 Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers, who will trade very well against all of those units, doing some nice damage to all of the cavalry. We do have Alariel the Radiant, who is going to be bringing Earthblood and Shield of Thorns, as well as, it looks like, Tempest, and of course her Star of Averlorn. We do also have 2 Nobles on Chariots, and these Nobles on Chariots do very, very well. They're a very good unit, especially on their chariot, one of which has the Sacred Incense, which gives a nice 12% missile resist to units around them. And that mostly would be for those Scourge Runner chariots that you might often be seeing, but otherwise this will just be against those Dark Shards. So a nice little ability to have. Does look like maybe one of the Illyrian Reaver Archers. Maybe was deployed a little far away initially, but is moving as things get underway. So the Sorcerer of Death is going to be shadowing her 2 Cold One Knights and the Slaanesh Harvesters, so they do have a few spells up their sleeves as well, though the Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers are targeting these 2 units, and they are doing a nice bit of dodging, though, as most of those shots are going off to the sides. If we take a look on this, the High Elves' left flank, they are going to be overloading with their Dragon Princes and Illyrian Reaver Archers, so they would easily be able to handle those 2 units. So one of the units is going to be pulling back as these Slaanesh Harvesters and Cold One Knights are kind of getting a little too close for comfort. And the Nobles, though, are going way, way up front here, just cycling straight through these Hargoneth Executioners. And with the cavalry so far away, there's nothing that's really going to be able to pin them down, as they'll just be able to cut right on through these very elite units of Hargoneth Executioners, while the Bolt Throwers continue to just fire away at the cavalry and other units, getting a nice free charge by these Dragon Princes here, and these Dragon Princes kind of missed their charge there, as the Harvesters do pull out, as the Dragon Princes will also pull out through their own units. Although it does look like they're trying to get a few more charges in, as the Dark Elf Cavalry is being a little kind of slow to respond. At least initially, they are kind of focused on the other unit of Dragon Princes right now, as more of the cavalry now are starting to try and swarm them, and shots from these Dark Shards are doing quite a bit of damage to these retreating Dragon Princes, and Earthblood going down, kind of trying to top them off as best they can, and these other units do end up getting a little stuck in with the Spearmen, as the Dragon Princes then eventually turn around and fire back. A Fate of Buna looks like it's going to be going down on top of these Dragon Princes, but we do have a Star of Averlorn going to be healing up these units very, very well, as the Hargoneth Executioners are doing quite a bit of damage. I mean, even Alariel is taking quite a bit as well, but one of these Dragon Princes is going to be routing off the field, just being overwhelmed by all of the mobility that the Dark Elves have brought, and it does look like the Dark Elves are doing fairly well right now. They are ahead in the balance of power. They have been kind of from the get-go, but these Stars of Averlorn are going to be a killer if they will get onto the right targets. and that is going to be the end of that second unit of Dragon Princes, as it does completely shatter off the field. There is still 2 full health nobles, which will do quite a bit of work, but with the front line as small as it is for the High Elves, and the Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers just haven't been using their ammunition quickly enough, though they are getting some nice shots in to this mass of units right now. I think this is where the Bolt Throwers are going to have to shine, as they do so much work against with their piercing shots into this just absolute blob of units. I mean, any kind of wind spell would be very good if the High Elves had brought it, but they do not in this particular match. And the Dark Shards, though, just continuing to rain in fire, as Alarielle is pretty caught out right now. She is just caught in all of these units as Murderous Mastery does go down. Actually, the Balance of Power does a quick shift into the High Elves' favor at this point. It was very much in the favor of the Dark Elves for so long. I think all of these Bolt Throwers, again, just firing right into this blob of units, hitting a lot of high-value targets into these Cold One Knights, these Harganeth Executioners, and there just wasn't enough things targeting Alarielle and these Dragon Princes to get enough damage off onto them. The Reaver Archer is going to be able to chase off some Dread Spears as well, and we do have... Did I misspoke earlier? I thought one of the Dragon Princes had shattered, but it looks like just the unit stuck into the main fight had broken as the other. So they still have 22 units on that other unit of Dragon Princes, so that is able to come back. That will provide a nice bit of help to the High Elf army, as right now it's just pretty much a cav blob fight with some nobles stuck in, though here comes some Cold One Knights kind of sneaking right through the formation, looking to get into these Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers, and if these Dragon Princes are able to respond soon, that could be enough to save them, though right now that will be shutting down those units, at least for the time being. Nobles, though, doing some good work getting into the back of the formation of the Dark Elves here, as the second Star of Avalorn going down, going to be topping off all of these nobles and Alarielle herself. I'll be seeing the Balance of Power shift into the High Elf favor just from that cast alone, as that is just an insane amount of healing that you can get off from just one use of that ability, and the Balance of Power shift does show that. Now we have the Living Reaver Archers trying to shut down these Dark Shards as best they can, and this blob of infantry right now, I think, is just slowly getting whittled down by these nobles. Though Word of Pain does go down on top of the noble, just reducing some of the melee attack on to that unit. But at this point, maybe that's a little too late of a cast, as it was pulling out already from that engagement. But the back line of the High Elves has been compromised, as all 3 of the Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers have been routed off the field by these units of Celestial Harvesters, as well as the Cold One Knights. Though the Cold One Knights are rampaged into some Spearmen right now, so they'll be taking quite a bit of damage from them, and Alarielle now getting into the Dark Shards as well as the Noble. So it does look like things are going poorly for the Dark Elves at this point. Spirit Sorcerer Death also getting routed off by the Noble. And yeah, it looks like that will be a High Elf victory, as just the Noble and Alarielle are able to tank through all of that damage, despite the 2 Dragon Princes getting kind of overwhelmed fairly early on. And surprisingly enough, just the 4 units of Spearmen were able to hold off all of the Dark Elves. I was kind of surprised the Harganeth Executioners, with the same amount of Dread Spears, I feel like should have been able to chew through these Spearmen a little quicker than they did, but those Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers, I think, during that blob fight with all of the Cold One Knights, just able to get so much value when they were firing into that, because they were just able to rip through multiple units of very high value infantry and cavalry, and that was allowed the Prussian Prince to come back as well. I mean, also the Star of Avalorn in and of itself providing a ton of healing on top of that, so that will be RTK for the third battle, so they will be up 2-1 at this point. So let's take a look at the chat. Alright, so yeah, Ulrich Rahl has already joined, and his opponent is going to be Zalo. I don't think I have him on my list yet, so I don't know if he'll be able to see it. There's that friend request. So we'll be able to get him invited in. And we'll get the next map set as well, which should be Galbaraz. There we go. Nice big map. Should favor the Empire fairly well. I mean, Greenskins as well, both can have a very strong skirmishing force here. Greenskins have, of course, been quite strong with this most recent DLC. Alright, make sure we have all of our contestants still in the lobby. Lobby seems to be going fairly well. Alright, Ulrich Rawl is ready to go. See what he has brought against the Greenskins. Yeah, the Empire definitely has multiple ways to deal with this matchup and most matchups in general, as they have such a strong mobility and they have very good artillery as well as some other gunpowder units. So it could be a kite build, could see a bit of artillery. I mean, you have units like the steam tank. Volkmar, I think, is pretty good in this matchup too. He's just such a good staying power where he just can last the entire game. And is very tanky with his regen, unbreakable. So we'll see how Ulrich is planning on handling this one. Zadagan looking to see those grenade launchers, and they can be very useful in this matchup. Greenskins do have low armor in general, and if you can get some nice shots into a blood fight, I mean, their skirmishers are very spread out, but their infantry can be pretty compact. So we'll see what we have for the Empire here, as we do have 2 pistoliers and a 3rd unit as well. So no grenade launchers, but a very heavy mobile force, as we have Empire Knights, Knights of the Blazing Sun, 2 units of Knights of the Blazing Sun, and 3 Empire Knights in total. We do have Karl Franz up in the sky, as he is going to be, of course, bringing his kit, which is the Foe Seeker, Stand Your Ground, Reichling Runefang, and Galmaraz. I mean, that's pretty standard to what you're going to be seeing. He usually will bring all of his items. Very good unit there. We do have a Bright Wizard with Burning Head and a Jade Wizard bringing, is that just Earthblood? So no regrowth, though Earthblood can be plenty if cast right, especially with all of the cavalry here. Earthblood is definitely a good way to go. Otherwise, frontline, just going to be Spearmen and Shields, the Sigmar Sons, a nice unbreakable unit, and then a couple more Spearmen, and that will wrap up the front line. So very, very heavy on the mobile cav force here, and we'll see how well Ulrich is able to handle that. I know he has the micro to do it. And then for the Greenskins, we have Goblin Wolf Rider Archers. For the mobile force, we have 4 of those, one of which being the Magrub's Mangy Marauders. They do have armor piercing, and they do have immune to psychology as well. So that will help with them be able to do a nice bit of damage to the opponent's mobile forces. Though I think Pistoliers should be able to handle this quad group fairly decently enough, especially with the support of all the Empire Knights. Otherwise, the front line for the Greenskins going to be some Goblins up in the forefront, some nasty Skulkers on the flanks, pretty good against enemy cav with their slow and their armor-piercing values as well. For the heavy hitters for the front line, we have some Orc Boys, the Night Goblins, and another unit of Orc Boys. Otherwise, very heavy on the more elite cav, as well as we have Orc Boar Biggins mixed in with some Orc Boar Boys. So we have 3 Boar Boys and 2 Boar Boy Biggins. Greenskins always have such fun names to try and pronounce. For the leadership, we do have Wurzag. He's going to be bringing quite a bit. We'll look at that. We have 2 Goblin Big Bosses as well, one of which bring in They Need Stabbin'. And we'll take a look at what Wurzag has brought. He has Bonewood Staff, Gaze of Mork, Foot of Gork, Get Back Here, and Effigy of the Git. So the effigy that get paired with that foot of Gork could be devastating to some of the cavalry units, and a nice gaze of Mork doing some decent damage to the Bright Wizard, though most of those missiles do miss their mark. So right now we do just have Karl Franz pretty much screening out these Goblin Wolf Rider archers to allow the Pistoliers to kind of get the targets that they need, as they are going to be trying to focus down one unit at a time. Karl Franz was doing a fairly decent job of separating these units. Some nice volleys going into these mangy marauders. Otherwise, a lot of the mobility is kind of sitting in the rear right now. I think already going to try and circle around. Looks like another gaze of Mork, though, going to be firing in, trying to get this Bright Wizard off the field. Doing a bit of damage, so I think the shots so far just haven't really had the connection that they've been wanting to get. So a nice charge by Karl Franz, breaking the brace, or I guess the charge of these goblins themselves, as the cavalry are just going to be getting some nice frontal charges in. They do have to be a little careful, though, because they could quickly get countercharged by all of the greenskin cavalry, as it looks like that is exactly what they're trying to do. Though Knights of the Blazing Sun getting their own charge off onto these Orc War boys, as the Empire Knights do pull out, and Pistoliers are going to be circling around looking to support this particular engagement, and a Burning Head going to be arcing its way straight through these units, doing a lot of damage to these boar boys, the nasty skulkers, and it's going to be clipping some of these goblins by the looks of things. It does look like it goes a little bit ahead of them, but that was a ton of damage onto these units, and they quickly shatter these nasty skulkers and rout off these Orc War boys. Otherwise, we still have some units sticking into that engagement, though they'll be taking quite a bit of damage, especially from these Pistoliers firing in. It does look like the Greenskins' right flank is kind of pushing back themselves, as the Empire Knights have been rotating around the other way. Well, Pistoliers now are going to be putting on some very nice back pressure, as they're going to be chasing off these two units here fairly quickly, and the other unit of Boar Boys does rout as well. So that is quite a few of the mobility units for the Greenskins that are going to be pushed off the field pretty early on. Night Goblins trying to chase after these Empire Knights, though the Wah does go down. It's going to be providing some nice stopping power for those Greenskins engaged, though at the same time they do have some of the another unit of Orc War Boys routing, and so that is quite a bit of the cavalry, and as long as the Empire are able to make sure that they stay off the field, that is going to be quite a bit of advantage. It looks like we have a foot of Gork is going to be going right down into this unit here. Probably not the best cast, though it does do some decent work to these Empire Knights that did just kind of charge in, although there are probably some more juicier targets. I think like these Knights of the Blazing Sun could have been a very good target for that cast, though we do have Orc War Boys getting some very nice rear charges in, but the Sigmar Suns, they are unbreakable, so they will take that charge fairly decently. They will take quite a bit of damage, but they will be able to stay in that fight regardless. Looks like one of the Pistoliers, though, has been routed off from all the fire from these Force Goblins, Spider Riders, and or Wolf Rider archers, and otherwise these nasty skulkers hounding them as much as they can. One of the units of Orc War Boys has returned. Pistoliers going to be redirecting their fire off onto them. Otherwise, balance of power is still very, very even. One of the Goblin Big Bosses has been routed, but otherwise we have, whereas actually both of them have been, of the Goblin Bosses have been routed, and Karl Franz has taken quite a bit of damage, though at the same time Wurzag is also routing, and with the routing of the three leadership heroes, balance of power does shift into the Empire's favor fairly quickly, and there's still quite a bit of mobility left for the Greenskins, though if they're able to play their cards right, they should be able to pick apart, because the Empire are a little bit spread out. They have some units kind of off onto the fringe. These two Pistoliers are very isolated, although they should be able to kite away from these Orc War Boys very, very easily. But we do have a unit of Knights of Blazing Sun getting caught out, and they will most likely be routing and shattering. Otherwise, the leadership of the Empire, though, is still standing strong. The Jade Wizard, very, very important, has been able to stay around for the remainder of the fight, and some Earthbloods, which very well might be coming into this blob of cavalry, could provide some nice bit of additional healing, though I think the Greenskins, they do need to try and get Karl Franz off the field as quickly as they can, and if they are able to get rid of Karl Franz, they do have an avenue back into the match here, but a lot of forces are starting to rout, and I think army losses will be triggering for the Greenskins momentarily, as pretty much all of these units are slowly being pushed off on all sides. Yeah, Pistoliers continuing to get some nice shots in, and with this charge from the Empire Knights, those nasty Skulkers will be routing off, and all these Spearmen on top of Karl Franz, I think, is just going to be a little too much for the Greenskins to handle at this point, especially with the help of these Empire Knights. And the last of the mobility is also being compromised from the Greenskins. Just a few units left. We do have Wurzag finally coming back in one of the Goblin Big Bosses with a little bit of mobility, but yeah, at this point, I mean, Karl Franz should be able to kind of swoop in there and do a lot of work just with a couple of his own knights, and that will be army losses, and the Empire will take our final 1v1. So we'll put RTK up 3-1 going into the 2v2s. Take a look at the after battle report real quick though. Empire Knights and doing very well, especially these Knights of Blazing Sun. 127 kills, 118 on this Empire Knight unit, chevron apiece. Very, very good work here. Bright Wizard had a fantastic cast that kind of roasted through some Orc Boar Boys and doing some good work to some of the infantry as well. And I think, yeah, the Greenskins, they lost their cavalry a little too early on, which was kind of their especially hurt them in the late game, losing all of these units, routing them off in different directions, so they weren't able to really regroup and punish the Empire Cav as well as they had wanted to. But otherwise, things going fairly well. Yes, wicked. Some nice jokes there. So, we will be doing the 2v2s. We will rehost. I'll make sure I let Captain Foxy know that. Oh, I hosted that, not as spectator. Alright. Oh, I didn't even drop. Okay. I keep messing this up. Here, we'll take a switch over to that. Forgot to do the one thing I backed out for. So drop to medium. All right. Okay. Now the lobby is up, so you guys can join on in, get all these spots open. And yeah, this will be Tex and Kafka and Jimmy versus Sebas. So let's see. And oh, Captain Foxy is already in as spectator. Very good. Kafka has joined. I was waiting on the rest. Yes, Jesse, so these matchups, the teams and matchups are predetermined. Each of these, so each clan would submit their lineups, so it's completely blind picks. You don't have any knowledge whatsoever other than what maps will be being played on. Otherwise, you just kind of submit who your 1v1 contestants are, your 2v2 teams, and your 3v3 teams, and whatever the matchups are, what they end up being. So far, I think the advantages have been a little bit for the RTK favored for the 1v1 matchups, though this will be a fairly difficult 2v2 for our first one. Oh, right, and the funds are going to be 10K. There we go. And the first map, I believe, is going to be Summer Song. And there is Sebas. And we'll switch back to the scene. Looks like everyone is loaded in. Make sure everyone is still there. All right. So yeah, for this particular matchup, I mean, Coast in general will have the advantage against both of the Dark Elves and the Lizardmen. High Elves do well, or I guess it's more even against Dark Elves. Lizardmen do have the advantage against High Elves, but when you combine the two together, that could be quite an interesting little synergy here, because you have a lot of firepower from the Vampire Coast here, and then also very good mobility and some very good lords as well with the High Elves and Lizardmen and Dark Elves. They do have some decent mobility. Lizardmen will definitely have their strength in their large units, though I don't know if they're going to necessarily want to be bringing them with the Coast here with their carronades and the like. Alright, so if you're just tuning in, this is going to be our first 2v2 of the day. Oh, and I forgot to update the score as well. So yeah, the first 4 matches have been 1v1s. RTK has taken 3 of which. EC has taken 1. Looks like everything might be a little bit of a stream issue. I don't know if anyone else is seeing it or not. So it looks like it is being a little bit laggy. Hopefully that should clear up. Alright, well, yeah, hopefully that does clear up, but we will get underway with this match. Yeah, YouTube's saying there's a little bit of... it's not receiving enough video. We'll see. It should pick up fairly quickly. I mean, with the lag that might be associated with having 2v2s and 3v3s, it might kind of balance itself out anyways, so... Alright, so armies have loaded on in, and we'll go over, I guess, what the lizardmen have brought first. So we do have some Saurus warriors, I guess 4 units of those, all of which with shields, very good against what the coast will be likely to bring. We do have some chameleon skinks, very nice skirmishing force, but we do have 2 stegodons as well, and paired up with the 4 reaper bolt throwers could put quite a bit of hurt on the artillery that the vampire coast might be bringing. We do have a Slan mage priest of high magic, and he will be bringing, looks like we have Tempest, it's kind of Apotheosis, Hand of Glory. So that'll pair very nicely with the ranged units for this 2v2 matchup. Then Blood Statue of Spite, and of course the Shield of the Old Ones and Bound Banishment. And then for the Dark Elves, of course, yeah, we have the 4 Reaper Bolt Throwers, and then we have some Black Art Corsairs and Witch Elves as well, which will help chew through the front line, especially of the zombies, and as well as some of the other High Elf units, though they will struggle maybe a bit against the Silverin Guard. We do have some Harpies, and then mobility is going to be some Dark Riders with shields, and some Dark Riders with their repeater crossbows, a very good skirmishing tool. See how well they're able to handle what the High Elves would have brought to counter that. We do have a Supreme Sorceress of Fire going to be bringing Fireball and Burning Head, so a lot of options here that can do very well against artillery pieces. So the Fireball, all these Reaper Bolt Throwers, 2 Stegodons, and the Hand of Glory from the Slan Mage Priest will do quite well. And then for the High Elf and Vampire Coast army, we have a kind of a front line of, we have Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs in the forefront, and then they'll be backed up by some Spearmen mixed in with some Silverin Guard as well. So we have 3 Silverin, and then a mix-up of Spearmen on all fronts. The long-range units going to be some Zombie Pirate handgun units, so, and just regular 2 pistol mobs. We have a Zombie Pirate, another pistol in the back. We have some mortars and 2 carronades as well, and we have Kylostra Direfin up on her crab. And we'll take a quick little look at what she is bringing for spells. We do have Denizens of the Deep, so a summon of Rotting Prometheans, and we have Song of Enthrallment and the Ghosts of the Past, a summon of Damned Knights Errant. So that is going to be all for that. And then we also have a Fleet Captain of Vampires, a very common pick, going to be bringing Raise Dead and Invocation, as well as Taunt. For the High Elf leadership, we do have Teclis, and he is going to be bringing Regrowth, Potion of Croy, then his Bound Fiery Convocation, and he also has a Net of Amnentok as well. Lion Chariots of Trace, and in the back we do have a unit of Dragon Princes and Silver Helms as well. Alright, so it looks like the stream lag has subsided for now, so everything should be good for this next battle. But that should be everything for the armies. Actually, we have 3 mortars. I can't believe I missed that before. So a lot of artillery from the Vampire Coast. But they will be sitting back in the rear, just kind of peppering away. And we'll see if, I mean, even the 4 bolt throwers and stegodons, if they're going to be able to outtrade those mortars and carronades, we will see. I believe the stegodons, they have 360 range, so the carronades will outrange them at 450. So yeah, this bolt thrower, I think, is going to struggle a bit with its shots. But we will see what happens with that one. So, let's see. Start when ready. So yeah, Viking, that wasn't too much lobby lag. That was, the stream was lagging on YouTube a bit earlier on. But that does look like it subsided. We'll see how well everything is moving. Shots are starting to rain in from the bolt throwers. First shot just kind of going to the zombie part, so it is on fire at will, so I'm sure they will redirect those fires to where they need to be, targeting mortars and carronades for the most part. I mean, the Saurus warriors will be able to tank the mortar shots fairly well, not so much the units of like Dread Spears and the other Dark Elf units. But, I mean, the Carronades might be the target to focus on first. Stegodons are going to be moving up to provide some fire. And also the High Elf and Vampire Coast armies are also going to be moving up, looking to get some nice line of fires as the Carronade does open up its shots and is going to be targeting this Stegodon, doing some pretty good damage on its opening volley. And we'll see how the shots are going to be able to start raining in, as it looks like we have Apotheosis was going down on that Stegodon. I thought it might have been Hand of Glory, but those Stegodons should be in range, and the Shield of the Old Ones also going down on top to kind of prevent a little bit of damage that is going to be coming its way. Right now, all the Spearmen and Zombies will be putting a bit of pressure actually onto the front line. So the Stegodons, if they continue to push forward, the Stegodons may have to actually be pushed back from firing against all of the mortars and carronades, though they should be able to get some good shots in. The Dark Elves really didn't bring enough mobility, I think, that can really challenge the Silver Helms and the Dragon Princes, especially if they're going to be getting fired upon by carronades. And there's also these Lion Chariots to help support. But now all of the bolt throwers do open up, and they are going to be targeting this mortar first, and they are quickly going to be doing a ton of damage. One artillery piece already going down, doing a lot of damage to the crew as well. So the next volley should be able to take out at least another unit of artillery pieces on that one, and the shots are going to start raining in. So some of these shots do look like they were mistargeted once again, and more shots though are going to be finding their mark. Still holding on to their own artillery pieces. As some more shots do fall into the ground. They are going to be crumbling though, and they don't have a whole lot of crew left either. I think they only have enough crew left to really man one of the mortars at this point. So some missed shots actually doing some decent work, but a banishment looks like it's going to be going down right into the middle of the Zombie Pyre Deckhand mobs, as the Damned Knight's Errant Summon does get used by Clylostra, as this Stegodon has taken a ton of damage. Stegodon definitely is going to be wanting to be pulled back and kind of sustain itself a little bit better. But nice fireball going to be arcing its way, targeting Clylostra, but it might hit that Stegodon. As it does, Stegodon does a little bit of blocking for Clylostra there. Song of Enthrallment going to be going down, as well as the Summon of Rotting Prometheans, as Clylostra is taking quite a bit of damage, but that Stegodon has as well. These Knights have been able to shut down at least one of the Reaper Bolt Throwers, as we do have a net going down, overcasted on top of the Stegodon, both Stegodons as well, allowing Clylostra to escape, as Teclis does prevent that, at least for the time being. Mortars are going to start raining in onto the Reaper Bolt Throwers. I think there may be some better targets for them to be firing in on. Those Reaper Bolt Throwers, their crew is fairly spread out. Some more shots can be raining in. One unit left on this unit, and they are still be crumbling, so they might be going down fairly soon. Gunfire has opened up from the black spot, as they are going to be targeting, looks like they are targeting these Riders Repeater crossbows. And that Stegodon's still going down, but Clylostra also has taken a ton of damage, as these Repeater crossbows have been firing in, as well as the Chameleon Skinks, doing some nice bit of poison damage as well. But these Saurus Warriors are about to get recharged by these Lion Chariots, and in the back line, just a mass of units that have just kind of collapsed upon the summon of Damned Knights Errant, trying to protect their units as much as they can. That could be quite dangerous though, as the mortars could just target this blob of units right here. Though it does look like they are targeting other units. They are going for the... Actually, it looks like they were targeting the Darker Riders there for those shots. So some of the Dark Elf units have kind of moved off into the flanks, as they are going to try and jump down on top of these mortars. The Silver Helms will be quick to respond, getting a nice counter charge into the bounce power, very much in the Coast and High Elf favor right now, as a lot of the big units, Stegodon for example, have taken a ton of damage, as these handguns continuing to just rack up value against these other big units. Apotheosis trying to get as much health back as they can, and Shield the Old Ones also going down to provide a little bit more damage resistance. But the front line not going so well either for the Lizardmen and Dark Elves. They are going to be doing fairly well on this front, though those Spearmen should hold up for a decent amount of time. Harpies getting pushed off as well, as the Silver Helms were able to make sure that they stayed, that the mortars were able to stay operational. And we do have some more Dark Riders, though they are not going to want to be tangling with those Dragon Princes, as Fireball does arc its way in, looking to be potentially targeting these Dragon Princes, though I don't know if that's necessarily a good target. They do have like 70% fire resistance, so that shot probably not going to be doing a whole lot. I mean, doing some actually decent damage as it arced through quite a few models, but they do have a good amount of fire resistance as well. So mortars still free to fire. So they were only, the Reaper Bolt throwers have so far only knocked off 1 unit and then 1 extra artillery piece on that other unit of mortars. So a lot of artillery still firing from the Vampire Coast, and not a whole lot that the Dark Elves have left to respond to that. Nice Burning Head though, going to be cutting through the black spot, doing some good damage there, taking off about half, 3/4 health right there. They are going to be critical binding. They didn't even crumble, but they do get an invocation popped off as well. And otherwise, a lot of the front line not doing so hot. Spearmen tying down 2 units of Saurus Warriors, which I think is actually kind of a big deal there, because the Saurus Warriors are really needed to help chew through as much of that front line as they can. And if they're tied up with against 1 unit of Spearmen, and especially with these Lion Chariots cycling in, it's going to be doing quite a bit of good work. Calastra still kicking strong, as she is only at half health, but she has been able to keep going. She is rampaged though by these Witch Elves. So a nice little just do a little bit of damage to Calastra, and then they pull back. They haven't really been able to get Calastra into a really dangerous spot. You do have the repeater crossbows firing in, and the Scream Sorceress. Actually, it looks like we have another banishment going to be going down right in the back line of these Spearmen, and maybe clipping some of these zombie pirate gunnery mobs as well. So they should do a nice bit of work there. Reaper Bolt throwers still firing for now, though the summon of zombie pirate gunnery mobs right into the back line are going to be firing and shutting down these Reaper Bolt throwers, at least for the time being. Balance power is still in the favor of High Elves and Coast, though it hasn't really moved a whole lot recently, as the Harpies did actually come back and are able to jump on top of the mortars, though the Silver Helms are once again going to be quick to respond, as these Dragon Princes have been doing some good damage to the Dark Riders as well. So we'll take a look at the surrounding units. These the Black Spot doing a lot of good work to the Stegodon. Stegodon should be routing and potentially even shattering, as the cannon fire still coming in. Just a couple more cannonballs should be enough to put that to the point of no return. Saurus Warriors finally getting through a little bit, getting around this unit of Spearmen, but there is another Spearman quickly able to tie them up, as well as the gunnery mob does pull back. That fireball burning head kind of goes through a little bit of the front of the unit, not doing nearly as much damage as its first cast. Things still not looking so great for the Lizardmen and Dark Elf combo. We have a Fiery Convocation, though, going to be arcing its way through. Though the Dragon Princess might be able to get its way out, though it does cut right through the units. Again, though, they do have very high fire resistance, so that's not going to do as much as potentially going through maybe potentially the Silvern Guard, or really this blob of infantry up here. Yeah, balance power starting to shift away from the Dark Elves and Lizardmen even more, as there's just so much left for the High Elves and Vampire Coast. I mean, you have a full health unit of Silvern Guard here, full health Spearmen, and these the Silver Helms are doing very well in terms of health, and there's not a whole lot that's left that isn't compromised that can respond to that. The Reaper Bolt throwers almost out of ammo right now. This unit's pretty much at full, but the other 2 units have used up pretty much all of their shots. And I'm sure there's still summons left in the back pocket for this Vampire Fleet Captain. I know Calastra has used all of hers. I think she might have 2 on the Rotting Prometheans, but she has used her damn Knights Errant already. A little bit of a counter push here from the Dark Elf troops, as they are going to be pushing forward, trying to get on top of these zombie pirate gunnery mobs, though these Silvern Guard are going to be angling their way to kind of screen them out. And that does allow for these Dark Riders to kind of push right through this gap, and they will be targeting this Black Spot unit. Well, the Black Spot, they do have halberds, and they are anti-large, but they are still just zombies, so they should be able to take quite a bit of damage, but they are undead, so they will not be routing. Though the support of the Silver Helms will definitely be able to push those Dark Riders right off of those Black Spots. Otherwise, Repeater Crossbow is still firing in doing some decent work to the Silver Guards. Another Burning Head will be going right through the Zombie Pirate Gunnery mob, and that will be a very nice cast. Little slow-mo action, as we do have a little bit of lag in the lobby for that, and doing a ton of damage, causing them to be critical binding, and most likely will be crumbling as well. Though things are not looking so great, as all the Reaper Bolt Throwers are being pushed off, and this Reaper Bolt Thrower is being pulled off of its artillery pieces, as some of the White Lions does get on top. I think that is going to be curtains for the Dark Elf and the Lizardmen forces momentarily, as pretty much all of their responses are currently offline for the time being. These Source Warriors are just getting, well, not really getting pounded, but they're just being held up by the Silver Guard. Even we have, I think it's just, we have 3 units of infantry right here being held up by just 1 Silver Guard, and the Lizardmen and Dark Elf forces really needed to kind of not blob up as much as they did there and get into those backline, because these carronades and mortars were just able to fire freely for the entire match. A lot of the gunnery units as well, they haven't really used as much of their ammo as you may have expected. A fireball is going to be arcing down, targeting Teclis, but Teclis does get a net off, and Opal Amulet is popped on the Supreme Sorceress, but the shots are just going to be raining in from these gunnery mobs, and it looks like EC will be tying up the series at 3. Yeah, take it. Yeah, these Spiritmen are being Blackheart Corsairs still at full health, and I think some of these flanking troops that the Dark Elves have were kind of maybe a little too cautious earlier on. I mean, these Spearmen will just pretty much hold them off and at least keep them from getting into the key targets here. We do have a Blackheart Corsairs mixed in, but they are just being surrounded by Dragon Princess, Kylostra, and the Silver Helms as well. And do have some Dark Rider support coming in to try and salvage at least this particular engagement. Witch Elves are again just pushing off some more of the Silver, and the Witch Elves, I don't think they really have a whole lot of, they have bonus versus infantry, but I don't know if they have really good armor piercing values that can really push through those Silverin Guard, as they do have very good melee defense, and they should still have their martial prowess on as well. Kylostra has reached her healing cap, if that is at least any concession for the Lizardmen and Dark Elf forces, so any damage now will pretty much be sustained for her, although Teclis is still sitting pretty in terms of health. The Slan Mage of Light coming in, looking to do a little bit of melee, as Teclis does engage. The Slan actually does fairly well in melee, but some of the hits not really going to be connecting all too well, but with the introduction of Kylostra in this engagement, that will be it for that Slan Mage Priest, as the Stegodon does also shatter, and there is army losses as the High Elves and Coast do finally take it, as we kind of struggle a little bit through the lag of that lobby there, as things were a little slowed down. Hopefully the 3v3 will be a little better. So yeah, if we take a look at the armies here, the High Elves' job pretty much was just to hold that front line. Silver Guard did very well with that. You have the sweepers in the back with the Dragon Princes and Silver Helms, and then the Lion Chariots were kind of those sweepers, where Teclis is pretty much a support at that point, while the firepower of the Vampire Coast did some very good work. Lots of summons coming down from both of the Lords, and mortars and carronades able to pretty much fire in the whole match. I mean, some of the handgun units were able to get pushed off. And take a look at what RTK had. The Saurus Warriors did decent work on the front line, though they really needed a little bit more, as the Stegodons, I think, fell a little flat. They weren't able to keep their fire on the targets for as long as they wanted to, as the High Elf and Vampire Coast did kind of pressure them a bit on that front line, while the Dark Elf units, the Harpies, were momentarily able to shut down some mortars every now and again, but otherwise Yeah, the Dark Riders were just a little outclassed in terms of the mobility department. But that is our first 2v2. And we do have some people jumping in for the next. So update the scorecard. So it is now even at 3. Yeah, so Jesse, this last game, we did have YouTube lag before the game started, but all lag during the battle there was all in game. With having this many people, and this is another reminder, just if you are, when you are doing the 2v2s and the 3v3 especially, make sure you turn your graphics down. It will help as much as possible to kind of make it at least playable. So let's see, this next map is going to be Blue Reach River. I don't know if I've ever played that one. Oh no, I've done this map before. So yeah, regardless of the outcome of this 2v2, this clan war will be decided in the 3v3. All right, well, Tex will open up some space. Yeah, we are just going to be waiting on Prussian Prince and Majutsu for this next one. It'll be Dwarves and Bretonia versus the Undead. So yeah, there is no possibility of a tie. Just the 3v3 is going to be worth 3 points. So regardless of who wins this 2v2, the 3v3 will decide the final outcome. Let's see. Probably get one invite anyway. All right, well, not sure where Prussian Prince and Majutsu are. Okay, so it looks like Prince isn't quite ready yet. I think he is probably still participating in the ever-chosen qualifier. Oh, Majutsu should be joining in just a second. right. Let's see. Well, I guess we can talk about the matchup that we have. Now, I think Bretonia, and like kind of the reverse of the last 2v2, like the Coast was able to pretty much counter both of the Lizardmen and Dark Elves on their own to the most part, while the High Elves just had to kind of support. In this matchup, you have the Dwarves, which do very well against both the Counts and the Tomb Kings, and Bretonia themselves also do well against both factions. It's a little more even with the Vampire Counts, but okay, where did that go? But yeah, both factions do, both of the undead do struggle a bit against Dwarves and Bretonia in their own right. Bretonia, yes, I mean, especially with their change in poison, they've just become such a much better faction, in which normally Counts and Tomb Kings had maybe a little upper advantage. Now that's kind of gone the other way. So we have Maijutsu has dropped on in. And here, I'll send a message seeing how far Prussian is from joining. All right, well, I can just kind of switch over to the lineup a little bit so we can kind of see how the matches have gone so far. So yeah, Vicious Satsuma did beat the green one as greenskins for our first battle, and then the order kind of mixed itself up a little bit, but Ulrich did take the other 1v1 with, again, as Empire versus the greenskins, and J Phoenix did substitute out for Lumiere, so he took control of Norska, and EC was able to win with the Beastmen helmed by Azrael of Astora. And then Prussian Prince able to come back a bit against the Dark Elves, having a little bit of a shaky start, but able to pull through and finally get some good target focus in that last 1v1 matchup. And then, as we just did our first 2v2, the EC forces led by Jimmy and Sabas with the Coast and High Elves did beat Tex and Kafka with their Lizardmen and Dark Elves. And now we are just waiting on Prince, who is, I guess he's currently in game right now. And he said it's just going to be taking a few minutes, and then Prussian will be ready to hop on in. Yep, the EC build with Lizardmen, Empire, and Dwarves. Lots of gunpowder, lots of good frontline infantry. We'll see how the Vampire Coast and Wood Elf with Chaos is able to kind of punch through that. Though I think both sides really have tools that can deal with it. So, yeah, you see the other game that's going on right now is actually the Ever Chosen qualifier, which Prussian is also participating in right now. He is in his second game of his series, and from what I've heard, it's only going to be a couple more minutes before that game wraps up. So we'll kind of see if I can tell if they're about finished. Still in game. They will be live streaming that qualifier. Dav, I believe, is the one for this first qualifier, and I believe the plan is he'll be streaming all of the quarterfinals, semis, and final. But I think there's like 110 plus people in this qualifier, so it's going to be a long tournament, especially if they're going to continue with the plan to stream all of the qualifiers. That could very easily be an all-day, or I guess for some of the European people, an all-night qualifier, which will be a little interesting with work in the morning. Yeah, Turin, he will have his qualifier, I think it's going to be this week. And then we have my son is going to be having his qualifier on Saturday. And then Aerocrastic will be having his on Sunday. So it's a lot of very big tournaments going to be happening this week for that Ever Chosen, which will be, I imagine, about a month-ish. Yep. We are just waiting on our dwarf player, Prussian Prince. So he should be here fairly soon. Though yeah, with his short legs, I'm sure that is what is holding him up. But yeah, we do have the map set. Okay, so I'm guessing Prussian Prince did not win his second match. So we will be looking to do our 3v3 first then, and I guess finish off with the 2v2. So, in that case, this will be fun to test that out. All right, so Wicked Tex. So I actually gotta get Tex back in here. Yep, we will still have our Dwarven 2v2 after this. Although it might just be a little bit more, well, we'll be a little bit more laid back. It'll just be a little bit for fun. Since this 3v3 does decide the series. Let's see here. We have Gropep. He's already in the match. Francis and Senior Turu. Well. So, Wicked, I know you're in that, or you were here. If you want to hop on in. Okay, we have Francis in. So we just need Senior Turu. And then we need Wicked and Tex back on in. Alright, Wicked is in. Now he's got to get Tex on in. Okay, so Tex has at least opened up Warhammer, so he should be here soon. Now we just need Senior Turu for our last contestants. Okay, so yeah, Kropo's saying he'll be here shortly. So yeah, if everyone else can just get their armies all set up, we'll get on into this next one. And the next one, I believe, is Peak Pass, or Empire Unfortified, actually. Ooh, that's going to be a fun one. Let's see. quite a bit of forest action, not as open as we've normally been doing Peak Pass. So we'll see how this one goes. All right. All right, looks like we have all of our contestants in. So we'll be getting on for the 3v3, which is normally the finale for the Clan War format, though regardless of which this match will decide the series, regardless of how the 2v2 happens, we still will play the 2v2, of course. That's always a fun matchup. And I do want to see how the undead are able to synergize, considering how the Tomb Kings usually don't have any healing. So the healing from the vampire counts should be a very nice benefit for their units. Oh, it looks like Turu is actually going with Clan Angrund. Alright, so hopefully this game is able to run fairly smoothly. If it does not, if it's pretty stuttery, we'll try and work our way through it. And if it's really bad, I'll just make sure I'll try and cast it at a later date, because then with the replay it'll be nice and smooth. Though this particular one potentially could be a little slow. If the last 2v2 is anything to go by, we'll probably be experiencing a little bit of lag. So yeah, I guess for this matchup, probably be expecting to see a bit more of an elite front line from Chaos, though at the same time maybe not, considering all of the artillery that the Dwarves and Empire can be bringing. Though I still feel like they'll pull most of that frontline duty with kind of the Vampire Coast acting as support, and then the Wood Elves will kind of be the mobility. The mobility of the Empire is going to be a bit of a tough one for, I think, the Wood Elf mobility to kind of handle if they go all in on that, while the Dwarves provide the ranged and the Lizardmen provide the frontline troops. That is a pretty dangerous combo if they kind of go that and kind of almost is a sub-faction or a sub-commander style of play. Alright, looks like RTK is readying up, so we'll just be waiting on the EC. And we should be all set and ready to roll. Looks like EC is just finalizing their strategy. See, I either see EC doubling down on artillery, or it's going to be just Dwarven artillery and Empire mobility, which I kind of feel like the Empire mobility is the way it's going to go. It provides a nice balance. Yeah, Legionmen are very good frontline infantry. The Dwarves have very good ranged, and the Empire have very good skirmish and mobility units, and like with Demigryphs. Knights of the Blazing Sun, probably be expecting to see those, or at least one or two, especially with the Vampire Coast on the other side. I'm not so sure if we'll be seeing any flame cannons, but who knows? They might go for a little throw out into left field. At least there isn't a noticeable lag in the chat, so hopefully that means that the lobby will play fairly decently. Yeah, that's just the problem with the flame cannon is its cost. It's very hard to pay for itself. There's a few units that are like that, but sometimes you don't necessarily need for it particularly to pay for its cost. You just have to have the threat of it on the field. And I mean, against the coast units, that could be fairly useful to help break through all of their chaff and stuff. Okay, so it looks like Francis needs to back out for a second. Or he might just be AFK for just a minute, and he'll be right back then. Yeah, I think the flamethrowers for the dwarves, they can definitely provide useful, though I'd expect maybe at least a troll hammer, because I mean with chaos you can bring some pretty juicy targets for those, but of course chaos may be trying to stay away from bringing anything too large. Alright, well, hopefully we'll be able to get this show on the road pretty quickly here. Try not to click on any of the factions. Alright, they may be back now. Kropep has readied up, so maybe that's a sign that Francis has returned. And we will hopefully be able to jump in. Okay, sounds like he's back. See, the problem with Chaos going super elite, while I think it might be nice to counter the Lizardman forces, I mean, the Dwarven artillery would do quite a bit of damage against an elite front line, and even if bringing some like Hellstorms, for example, would also provide that, because they have to kind of weigh the possibility that the coast gets outshot by either the combination of the Dwarven and Empire artillery, so they very well might have to move up. And if they have super elite front line from Chaos, that will slow down their advance, though the zombies will probably slow them down anyway. Alright, so he is here. Everyone is readied up, so now we can get on into the match. And now all we can do is pray that the lag is reasonable, and then we can get this game in without struggling too much with that. Alright, I feel like the deployment zone is going to be a little tight on this map. Though the scale may be a little deceiving here. So actually, an artillery build could potentially have problems, because you're going to be essentially trying to fire around this big old statue, and both sides are going to be deploying on opposite sides of this kind of initial mound. So mortars, and then to an extent Hellstorms and a flame cannon, may actually be a decent pick, and either side would have some decent cover if they do decide to advance. So this timer should be a little bit of an indication on just how long it takes everyone to kind of load on in. Hopefully it's before the 200-second mark. It does sound like we have at least a flyer on the RTK side. Could be a Manticore, or, I mean, probably actually an Eagle for the Lord. And he's got some Fellbats, and there's that Eagle that I was hearing. So, for the armies of RTK, we have a front line. We have Chaos Marauders, Warriors. Here's some of that elite infantry. We have some Chosen, more Marauders, Chaos Warriors with great weapons, more Marauders, and 2 more Chaos Warriors with great weapons. And the Chaos Forces is led by Sartorial, the Everwatcher. So we have the Big Bird, and Sartorial is going to be bringing Searing Doom, Flag of Rust, Final Transmutation with Arcane Conduit, and Standard Eye. So quite a few spells there, giving a nice variety to kind of deal with whatever might be there on the field. But otherwise, it is all infantry for Chaos, so that's how they are going to be rocking up for this match for Vampire Coast. We do have a lot of bombers. We do have some artillery in the forms of a couple mortars. Otherwise, we have 3 handgunners with Count Noctilus up on his Necrofex, bringing Captain Sroth Moondial, Wraithstorm, Invocation, and Raise Dead. Pretty standard kit for him. And that is it for the Vampire Coast as well. They are just bringing the ranged units. No zombie chaff for them. They do have a couple handgun deck droppers up in the sky as well to provide assistance for the Glade Lord. And then for the Wood Elf forces, we do have some Glade Guard with Hagbane tips getting some poison. And then we have some Eternal Guard with shields to provide a little bit of zoning and support for that back line, keeping any of the mobility off the field. And take a look at what else they have. We do have 3 Way Watchers as well, but opting for no mobility on the RTK side. We also have the Spellsinger of Life, bringing Earthblood and Regrowth. And we have 2 Gunnery Whites going to be providing some nice ammo for all of the ranged units, keeping them topped off, but pretty straightforward. So no heavy artillery from the Vampire Coast, and no mobility either. So that's going to be a little interesting to see how that shakes out. Now for the Lizardmen, Dwarves, and Empire, we have a front line of skink cohorts in the kind of mixed in, just kind of a little frontline chaff units. And then we have the Dwarven units with some Dwarf Warriors, some blasting charges mixed in. We have some Rangers as well. Rangers will do very well against a lot of, like, for example, bomber units, though there isn't a whole lot of them. There's only the 1 unit, so there's probably not enough to really do enough work against a lot of the bombers. We do have a Bright Wizard as well, bringing Burning Head and Fireball, so a very good pick there. You kind of have to bring some form of fire magic against the Count's, or not Count's Coast. And then we have Volkmar the Grim, bringing pretty much his full kit. So he will be a very nice frontline anchor for the EC forces. And then for the long range, we have the Sunmaker Hellstorm Rocket Battery. Will do a good amount of work against like Chosen, a lot of the elite infantry, so that's going to be a little dangerous for the Chaos forces. We do have some cannons as well from the Dwarven units, and it will be led by a Rune Lord with quite a few runes. Actually, looks like we have Rune of Wrath and Ruin, Master Rune of Negation, and Master Rune of Oath and Steel. So a lot of support coming in with those AoE buffs with Volkmar and that Rune Lord. We have Slann Mage Priest of Life, actually, bringing, looks like Shield of Thorns, Regrowth, Earthblood, and then his Bound, Banishment, and Shield of the Old Ones. We have a decent mobility core as well in form of Demigryph Knights with Halberds. We have some Cold One Spear Riders as well. So we have cold ones on both sides, but just the 1 Demigryph Knight by the looks of things. Another unit of archers from the Empire, so just a couple of units of the archer variants. Some Thunderers, handgun units, and some Slayers to provide some backline support as well. So yeah, that's pretty mixed up forces. The RTK has gone for more of a sub-commander style, where the forces of EC is kind of integrated in across all fronts, where, I mean, the Lizardmen have pretty much taken the front line and mobility, but otherwise the ranged is a mix of Empire and Dwarven units. So we will get things underway. Things seem to be running fairly smoothly as we take a look at the unit counts. Just a couple thousand apiece on the map edges. So we do have some Pterodon riders, I guess, for the is up in the sky, and I think that is Pterodons on both sides. Yeah, so we have 2 units of Pterodons as well from the Lizardmen. Good catch, Jesse, there. So the Pterodons will do good at screening out these deck droppers, though the Glade Lord should be able to push them off. And that Bright Wizard doesn't want to get too far ahead of himself. He is getting a nice fireball shot, though. We'll see where that is going to be arcing its way to. Might be going for Noctilus here, as he will probably just tank that damage fairly decently. And in comes the Hellstorm, as he's getting some shots in on the Chaos Warriors. It is a fairly accurate, it's a lot more accurate than the regular Hellstorm Rocket Battery. The Sunmaker does some ridiculous amounts of damage, so it doesn't have a whole lot of ammo. So it can quickly burn through it. As you can already see, it's already used up to a quarter of its ammo, but these handguns just taking so much damage as they are in critical binding already and should be crumbling as well. It does look like they are. Yeah, the Glade Lord keeping those Pterodon Riders away. Just allow, and if those Pterodon Riders got in with that Glade Lord would eat them for lunch. Some of the Glade Guard taking some good damage as well, though not so bad. These Deathjax archers actually coming in, getting some good shots into the Chaos Marauders, taking off a lot of its health, and now opening up is some shots. But Sartorial almost gets a Searing Doom down onto the Sunmaker. The Sunmaker is going to be getting a little bit of a regrowth, actually. That is a lot of Winds of Magic for that, and I don't think that was worth it at all. I think that regrowth was definitely misused there. The Sunmaker already has almost used all of its ammo, and it's not going to be, and once it's used its ammo, it's like pretty much useless at that point, except for some like chaff units. But Sartorial getting on top of Volkmar right now, keeping Volkmar away from assisting his Skinks. The Skinks are pretty much just delaying the advance of the Vampire Coast, and I guess for more the Wood Elf and Chaos Infantry, allowing their ranged units to get as much fire in as they can. Tech's getting a little bit ahead of himself. These Chaos Marauders way far ahead of the rest of the engagement, just going to get absolutely shredded by those blasting charges. Does get engaged with these Ekron Miners, but more shots raining in from the Thunders, and they'll be routing fairly quickly. I think they definitely needed to kind of wait just a little bit as so much shots are coming in. Actually, we do have a Solar Bastillodon as well, getting some nice shots right down the line and routing off those Chaos Marauders. We do have some Skinks also routing, but the tree line engagements are going underway. We have some Way Watchers, which are in a dangerous spot, as these Demigryph Knights are going to be coming in. If the Wood Elves do not see that quickly, those Demigryph Knights could get a ton of value earlier on. We have a Burning Head, did roast through some of these Chaos Marauders. A Soulfire coming down from Volkmar. So Volkmar is taking so much damage. If Volkmar goes down, that is a big loss for the Empire very early on. Another Searing Doom going down on top of the Silver Bullets, doing a decent amount of damage, but not too much. Otherwise, here comes the rest of the Chaos Forces. Bombers coming in to support. I think maybe the Chaos got a little bit ahead. They need to kind of slow down a bit for the rest of their infantry, as we do have some units that look like they have been forgotten, at least for the time being. Those deck droppers are very, very helpful. Though the Glade Lord with the assistance of those Way Watchers just shredding these Demigryph Knights. But here comes the unit of Cold One Spear Riders getting a very nice charge into those Way Watchers, though the Way Watchers getting a ton of value dealing with these Demigryph Knights. So we have two units of Cold One Spear Riders going to be putting some pressure onto those Way Watchers, which is going to provide a ton of value. There are some Spear in the units in the area that can peel them off, but here comes the rest of the Chaos Marauders. Shot from the Bastillodon going just a bit high. Otherwise, these blasting charges doing a lot of good work, but there are some blasting charges in the form of bombers from the Vampire Coast, and those shots should get right into these Slayers, and that'll do a ton of damage to them. And these Slayers, I mean, if they got, there's not really a whole lot of units. We have some deckhand mobs. The Slayers don't have a whole lot of major threats close by. Those Chaos Warriors would do good damage. But otherwise, take a look at this engagement. Again, we do have the Pterodon Riders taking a lot, and these Cold One Spear Riders charging right on in. We have a Zombie Power deckhand mob that is providing a bit of relief for these Way Watchers, and the Demigryph Knights are also returning. Otherwise, the cannons are still singing, and actually the Hellstorm has not used up all of its ammo yet. I wonder, did it lose all of it? It does not look like all of these units have been lost. It looked like they just pulled off of the artillery pieces for the time being. And Sartorial now getting maybe a little ahead of himself as well. I'm trying to finish off Volkmar, but now Sartorial is a little bit isolated himself, getting behind the Dwarven and Empire lines, and providing him getting very isolated and susceptible to all this crossfire. He does have missile resist, but it is not immunity, so enough fire will still do a lot of damage to him. Some of the front line has been at least pressured off with these Chosen and Eternal Guard, though they're just taking fire right now from the Bastillodon and blasting charges. Another Burning Head going right through these bombers, doing a lot of work, and it's going to be catching these Chaos Marauders by the looks of things, as well as the Slayers are making quick work of these bombers. And yeah, those Chaos Marauders taking a lot of damage. We have the Grumbling Guard, long beards, but now Sartorial has been pulling through. Volkmar continuing to just heal through that, so now that he is pulled back, he should be able to get lots of his healing off from over the course of the remaining battle. And we still have quite a bit of units kind of in the background here. Mortars still firing in, but we still have bombers and Eternal Guard back there with those deck droppers. And the front line, though, we have some Glade Guard being routed off, and I think these are some Way Watchers as well. So all of this mobility with the Cold One Spear Riders doing very good work for EC, able to get rid of some very, very high value units there. And the front line is just really kind of tapering off for the RTK forces as the balance power is shifting in the favor of the Empire Dwarves and Lizardmen. But here comes a lot of firepower right into Volkmar, as Volkmar may very well go down from this salvo from the handguns, and Sartorial also chasing him down, because Volkmar is down to just 565 health. He is healing, but the shots raining in as he tries to escape into the forest. We'll see if he is able to sustain. But, oh, this Spellsinger not in a good spot right now, getting absolutely surrounded by everything that the Lizardmen and Empire have in the area. Pterodon Riders finally kind of cycling out. But yeah, we still have some nice fire coming in from those mortars. I think those deck droppers would do well to advance. Volkmar once again able to escape, getting all of his healing off. And we still have Sartorial now very much isolated, as we have Slayers coming in with the Rune Lord and the Slayers. Ooh, that's going to be bad for Sartorial, getting those Slayers in. Cold One Spear Riders cleaning up some of those handgun units, and things are not looking so good for the forces of RTK in this matchup. Finally, we have our deck droppers coming into the fight, as well as these bombers. A little bit of tactical reserves coming in that late game. And I really don't think there's anything that the forces of RTK can do right now. These cannons are, I mean, we just have all these silver bullets. We have archers, and the Deathjacks can just absolutely focus down Sartorial right here. And Sartorial is just going to get absolutely wasted. And that will be all for him. And the rest of the forces not looking so hot either. Lots of mobility left, that there's just not enough to really be able to handle things, and everything's so spread out that those mobile forces can just pick apart whatever is left. We have the Gunnery Whites getting taken down fairly quickly, and we have the deck droppers doing some decent shots onto the Pterodon Riders, able to push off one unit, and then, I mean, these bombers will get quickly charged, and it looks like army losses will soon be taking effect. I'm surprised that these leadership penalties haven't already started happening for these Vampire Coast forces. But yeah, it's only a matter of time now before we have the Grumbling Guard will be getting in, and I'm sure just a charge from the Cav will clean things up. I think these Gunnery Whites are the only thing keeping army losses from triggering. And yes, it is definitely GG, well played. And there is army losses starting to take effect. Leadership penalties across the board, and the rest of the army will disintegrate. And that will be our 3v3 match. Yeah, definitely some forces being forgotten in that match. We had those deck droppers with handguns forgotten for the most part, but take a quick look at each of the armies. Chosen doing some decent work, but the infantry, I think, got a little bit ahead of itself over the rest of the forces, and Sartorial was also in a few bad spots trying to chase down Volkmar, who Volkmar in and of itself was surprising that he was able to survive. Initial volleys by the Way Watchers did fairly well against the Demigryph Knights, but they were quickly overwhelmed by the superior mobility with these Cold One Spear Riders. I mean, 3 chevrons for them, 1 for them. 114 kills by the Bastillodon. Very impressive work there. And then bombers, again, not doing so well. Looks like Prussian Prince is going to be ready for the next one. But yeah, deck droppers being forgotten definitely played a factor there. Take a look at what EC has. So infantry for the front line did fairly work. I mean, the Bright Crested Skinks did pretty good as well. And then Slayers, cannons able to fire the entire match. Very good work there. And then the Empire with the Sunmaker doing some decent kills. as well. And then Volkmar, his survivability that match was considerable, pretty much getting all of his healing over the course. Yeah, just probably a little too many areas of focus for the RTK forces, but very good match. And it looks like Prussian Prince is in, and we are getting ready for the next map, which was on. So we'll update the scorecard, though EC does take this clan war with that win. That puts them at 6. Oops, not 56. And this will be our final match. Looks like both Majutsu and Prussian Prince are readied up. So now just wait down Kropep and Azrael of Astora, and we'll get our final match in for the day. Last 3v3 actually ran very well. I was surprised, especially how the first 2v2 went. That ran pretty smoothly from what I could tell. Yeah, Lizardmen, Dwarves, and Empire, I think, is a very good 3v3 lineup. There's just each faction is specialized in the right areas, even though that they did kind of mix some of the Empire and Dwarven functions, I guess, in terms of ranged units. Still a very good match. And now talking about good synergies, I really like the Dwarves and Bretonia in the 2v2. I'm sure we will see why that is, though having Tomb Kings and Counts together as well is good synergy with the Counts healing that the Tomb Kings usually lack. So Azrael of Astora is the last one we are waiting on, and then we will get our final match of the day underway. Yeah, pretty much if you pair the dwarves with anything that has mobility, that's because you're pretty much taking one of their big weaknesses and filling that. And then the dwarves are just so strong with their infantry and ranged units. Their lords aren't very strong, but if you pair it with a strong lord, lots of mobility, and a little bit of magic, and that's all the dwarves will need. All right, so we are loading on in to our last match of the day. Again, this is the dwarves led by Prussian Prince and the Bretonians by Majutsu, and then we have the vampire counts are going to be led by, let's see, who was that? Will be led by Kropep and Azrael of Astora. No, Azrael of Astora has the counts, and then Kropep had the Tomb Kings. All right, so Bretonians do have a little bit of chaff front line. They have a couple of peasant mobs to kind of fill things in, but they also have some men-at-arms as well, and a couple peasant bowmen with pox arrows. Getting that poison on the field, always very, very important. They have a Damsel of Life, going to be bringing Earthblood and Regrowth, and we have King Lewin up in the sky. He is not going to be bringing his Sword of Garone, but he is still a formidable foe nonetheless. For the mobility, we have Knights Errant mixed in with some Knights of the Realm and a pair of Questing Knights as well. So 6 heavy cav units on the field will do very well, especially considering there's probably going to be some Blood Knights. We have 3 units of Slayers, and we have a front line we have Dwarf Warriors with a couple of Longbeards. We have 3 cannons. We have a Rune Lord who is going to be bringing Rune of Wrath and Ruin, right? Nice slows to the enemy mobility, and some miners with blasting charges to help deal with all of that undead that is very weak to fire. So that is going to wrap things up for the Dwarves and Bretonnians. And now let's swing on over to the Counts and Tomb Kings. So front line of zombies for the Counts. Always going to be seeing those units. We do have a black coach as well on the wings against the Dwarven infantry. Very good pick there. Dire Pack help with that mobility game. And then for the rest of the infantry department, for the Counts at least, we have some Crypt Ghouls. We have a Necromancer just bringing Forbidden Rod, so a little magic regen. We have a Lamian Vampire Lord. Looks like he's going to be bringing Pendulum, Raise Dead, Invocation, and Seduction, I believe, is the last ability there. It is. And we also have some Graveguard with great weapons. 2 of 3 of those actually, and 1 regular Graveguard unit. A couple of Crypt Ghouls as well help deal with the chaff units that Bretonnia will bring, while the Graveguard will help deal with the Dwarven front line. We do have some Ushapti with great bows as well as the Chosen of the Gods, armor piercing, and they do have a kind of a spread effect, so very good against infantry. Front line for the Tomb Kings, we have some Skeleton Spearmen, or Skeleton Warriors mixed in with some Skeleton Spearmen, and then we have the Skeleton Archers. I'm surprised I'm not seeing the, it's the Armor Sundering ROR unit for the Skeleton Archers. I forget what it is. We also have a couple of Felbats, also very good units just to have. You don't even have to use them to engage things. They can shut down range units, but they're really good at chasing stuff off for the most part. We do have Arkan the Black on his chariot bringing Spirit Leech, and that's it in terms of spells. He does have the Liber Mortis and the Staff of Negator, or the Tomb Blade of Arkan. My bad, the Tomb Blade of Arkan. And then some Tomb Guards, the Halberds in the back line, with a Bone Giant as well. So a decent amount of ranged forces with the 2 Ushapti Great Bows and the Bone Giant. I don't think that's going to be quite enough to deal with the 3 cannons. The Ushapti do fairly decently against them, but we'll see how things get handled. But yeah, there are no Blood Knights here. So that is going to be a little interesting that the Vampire Counts have opted to pretty much relinquish the mobility game. So that's going to allow the Bretonnians to have free reign for this battle. The only real mobility is the Dire Pack with a couple of Felbats. And it's actually really interesting that why the Dire Pack is here without the support of any of the Blood Knights. They can provide some good chasing, but that's what pretty much the Felbats are for. And the Felbats are only 350, while the Dire Pack is like 650, I want to say. So now the cannons deployed right near the front will allowed to be firing right away, while the rest of the frontline infantry are able to push forward. The Felbats pretty much just scouting ahead through these tree lines. They are able to see some peasant mobs, and they will be seeing the mass of cavalry as well hiding in the forest. And we do have some shots from the Chosen of the Gods actually just firing into some peasant mobs. Not really a target wants to be shooting at, and it is actually in the forest right now, so a lot of its shots are actually going to be ringing off of trees. They should probably be deployed out into the open here. There isn't also a whole lot that can stop these cavalry units from getting into them. You have Crypt Ghouls, but that is about it. You probably have some summons from Arkan and the Lamian, but otherwise these are a little unprotected right now, and a lot of mobility. If the Bretonnians knew that how isolated they were, that would be a quick little catch out by them and could probably sway the end of the battle just by that alone. But the cannons, look at the damage it is doing to this Bone Giant. All 3 cannons just absolutely decimating it. Bone Giant does get a shot off, and this could do a ton of damage. It does tick off quite a few models, only 4 of them, but still doing some good work. Though I think it's still not going to be even close to paying for itself, as the Velbats do try and shut down these cannons, but these Slayers are sitting right here, and these Velbats aren't going to be able to do much in terms of delaying it, as the cannons are still firing even though those Velbats are on, and the Velbats will be completely disintegrating right now, as are these Velbats are crumbling as well from the shots of these Peasant Bowmen, and they do have some Slayers in the tree line. And now out come the Dire Pack, just making themselves known, while the Chosen of the Gods and the other Ushabti units still firing in. Now they are targeting King Lewin by the looks of things, and we have zombies right now engaged with peasants, so it's chaff against chaff, though we do have these men-at-arms engaged with zombies, and they'll do some quick work of them. We have these Knights of the Realm able to get some nice charges in to these Skeleton Spearmen, as they do pull out, though, before they get some shots raining in. The Bone Giant does finally fall to the cannon fire, and now the cannons will be targeting other targets, potentially Arkan, or there is the Lamian as well. Lamian is a little more elusive target, and they do know that there is these Ushabti Great Bows in the trees, as they do kind of poke their way out, getting some better shots now that they are a little bit out of the trees. That there is some free-reigning Knights Errant and Knights of the Realm in the backline, as they are trying to be chased by these Crypt Ghouls and 2 Skeleton Spears with the Tomb Guard with halberds, so they will not be catching them. There is a unit of Dire Packs coming in, a nice Pendulum ripping through these miners with blasting charges, doing some good work there. Peasant Mobs actually winning out against these zombies. There is some firepower coming in from the Skeleton Archers, but the front line does look to be going the way of the Bretonnians and Dwarves. And here are a nice charge in to these Crypt Ghouls. Crypt Ghouls will not last very long against this cavalry forces, as they also get a nice charge into the back of these Graveguard with great weapons. We do have some Skeleton Spearmen here, though they are just Skeleton Spearmen, and they should be able to pull back fairly decently, even if they are engaged in them. The Black Coach is dodging some of the shots from the cannons, as they are trying to take it out, though the shots actually, I think, are targeting the Ushabti with Great Bows instead of the Black Coach. Cavalry forces do kind of pull out a little bit. They are doing very good work against these Graveguard with great weapons, taking them out. They will probably be disintegrating very, very quickly. And yeah, the front line not looking so hot for the counts. But oh, the back line, we do have, it looks like we froze up a little bit here. It's very potential. We may have had, there it is. There it goes. So yeah, we had an invocation crash. Good fun. Good fun on that. All right, well, let's load right back in. Yeah, balance power was fairly even at that point. I think the advantage was in Bretonnians and Dwarves, though the Tomb Kings and Counts were able to kind of push back some of the rear mobility forces. Alright, looks like people are loading back in. So we can get a little replay on that. If I know Prussian Prince was playing. I don't know if he has the time or not. Yeah. Getting a message in Discord about that lovely Nahet crash. There wasn't even any Blood Knights on the field for it this time. Usually that's when it happens. Yeah, definitely too early to call that. Same builds. If right. So let's try this again. Hopefully we can avoid any crashes this time around. Yeah, the neck crash is a bit of a pain, and there's mixed ideas on what's causing it, but it's the act of reviving models at like the same time that another like AoE magic spell is doing damage to another one is one of the ways that I think that happens. And it doesn't even have to be an overcast. It just generally often happens when it's on Blood Knights. All right, so we are back in. Hopefully this one goes a little bit better than the last. We don't want to have another crash like that. And if there is another crash, we may have to try. I don't know how the timing is for everyone, if they have time to try it again after that. Yes, yeah, the heck killing the game instead of resurrecting its models. But yeah, definitely, I'm surprised that CA hasn't been able to figure out why that's been crashing, because I'm fairly certain they know that it's happening as... Alright. There we go. Nice and smooth. So we're going to be doing some mind games on the deployment zone. Are they going to deploy in the same spot, or are they going to switch sides? That's pretty much what you're going to be thinking when everyone's deploying again. I imagine it's going to be fairly similar deployments on both sides. I wonder if the EC forces are going to be a little bit more conservative with their Bone Giant, because it went down very, very quickly. All right. So I wonder which side this is actually going to favor, where they're deployed completely on opposite sides of the map. Because having the cannons, I'm pretty sure they outrange the Bone Giant for sure. Bone Giant is 350. 440 on the cannons, so it's probably going to favor the Dwarven forces, because the Counts and Tomb Kings have to advance on top of these cannons. The cannons will be able to fire in for pretty much their whole range, as you can see the range right here. Yep, the Dawi cannons very accurate against that Bone Giant in that first attempt, as the Counts and Tomb Kings are kind of using the tree line here to advance, though these Ushabti Great Bows won't be able to get in range of really any of their key targets until they have to pull out of that tree line, and these cannons should be starting to fire fairly soon. They have range on zombies and crypt ghouls, so they probably should be holding their fire until they can get some nice good targets. And surprisingly enough, the Bone Giant here is a glutton for punishment. Apparently he does look like he is moving towards the range of the cannons, and we'll see if he's just going to try and bait out some shots, and here are the shots going to be raining in, and we'll see how this long range fire does work out. Should be seeing a volley any second now. Not really sure what the Bone Giant is thinking right there. I see if he's just trying to stay on the edge of the cannon's range to kind of maybe pull the fire as much as he can. But here are the first shots raining in. They are kind of going a little high and missing, so that may be the strategy there, is that Bone Giant's sitting right on the very outside range of these cannons. And I mean, the closer you get to the cannons, the better their accuracy is going to be. So that's potentially the strategy right there, is just kind of draw their fire as much as they can, and then allow for the rest of their forces to move up. Though the cannons really don't have any other good targets right now. The other targets would be the Ushabti, the Grave Guards potentially as well, but all of those are kind of sitting a long way out of their range. cannons once again returning their fire, and we'll see some good contact there with that Bone Giant taking quite a bit of damage. And Bone Giant is not in any position to return fire. We have the Knights of the Realm are kind of, I guess, scouting out without getting too close, because they do know there are Ushabti with great bows in the trees. It's just a question of where, and they don't want to be getting too close and taking all of that damage. So the Bretonnians playing a lot more cautiously than the last match, and the Tomb King and Vampire counts are moving up a lot more slowly as well. Bone Giant still taking quite a bit of damage, though the cannons, I'm sure, will eventually take it down, though it is definitely going down a lot slower than the last time. And now the Knights are feigning a charge, though they will pull back. And I'm not sure if the Ushabti are, I mean, they're kind of close to that range, but the shots still would have been going through the tree line. Once again, I think that the engagement is going fairly similar to last time as well, where they have the front line of zombies really engaging far ahead of the rest of the infantry, and they're just going to get like just shot to pieces by either these miners with blasting charges, who are doing a good job of staying their hand. They don't want to just be wasting all of their shots onto these zombies, onto like Graveguard, which none of them are really close by, so just going to let these the archers get some shots in, and I think King Lewin may be coming in to soften up that front line as well. But otherwise, yeah, the Bone Giant getting a few shots in, but more shots raining in from the cannons, doing a lot of good work. It is going to be critical binding, not crumbling just yet, and even if it does crumble, it's not going to really make a whole lot of difference. Nice recharge by these Knights Errant, doing some pretty much free damage to these zombies, as the rest of the units are pretty much too far away to respond, and they are out of range right now of these Ushabti. So the Ushabti, they have to come out of the tree line if they want to get shots in, as I think one of the units has the Chosen of the Gods has come out of the tree line, so they are going to be in range, and they're going to be starting to fire in. Looks like they are targeting the miners with blasting charges. Interesting choice on their targets. I would think that the Longbeards or even the Dwarven Warriors would be a much better choice for their target. We do have the Skeleton Archers are going to be starting to fire on in, and I think that Bone Giant once again lies in the ground, or lies on top of the ground, as the cannons have done their work. So the front lines are engaged. Lots of zombies taking a ton of damage, and the Dire Pack actually probably getting a little ahead of itself, trying to charge in. It does have bonus versus large, but it's still a dog unit, so it does have very low leadership. And it's not really a matter for being an undead faction, though it just doesn't dish out enough damage. It's more of a supporting unit. We do have some Skeleton Spearmen getting charged by Knights Realm, who do have, I believe, a Spirit Leech going down top it, peeling off a few models, and here come the Fellbats, looking to probably shut down some of the ranged units, though that didn't go so well the last time they tried that. Ushabti now taking a lot of damage from, I believe, cannon fire. They do have a invocation going down on top of them, so that will be healing them up fairly nicely. Though the cannons still doing a lot of good work on top of them. Now here come kind of the heavy hitters for the Vampire Counts in the form of these Graveguards, and the Crypt Ghouls as well will do some good work if they're able to get on top of some of these backline troops, though they are getting a bit hung up by the cavalry, and continual charging by the cavalry will just absolutely decimate them. A very nice pendulum on top of these Longbeards doing a lot of damage. Actually, we have some questing knights that were actually pushed back from these Tomb Guards, and I think the supporting fire from that Chosen of the Gods really did a number on them. And here is a nice summon from the Tomb Blade of Arkan on top of some of the Dwarf Warriors, though I think either supporting that frontline engagement or trying to get it on top of these Peasant Bowmen, though one of the Skeleton Warriors able to at least shut them down for the time being, though we do have Longbeards there to support. Actually, looking at things, the front line is going fairly well for the undead, as they have broken through on this entire right flank, And they are getting into some of the backline troops, though the cannons are still firing freely, and some more shots coming in from the peasant bowmen, cleaning up those fellbats in the back. And now here come the questing knights once again. Now that the tomb guard are a little farther away, getting a very nice charge off into the skeleton archers, though both of the Ushabti are going to be turning and firing, and that should make quick work, especially with the assistance of Arkan. I wonder if there's any friendly fire from those great bows coming in, though it looks like they are going to be firing over and targeting this kind of blob of units up here going in against these knights errant, doing some good work on them, as we do have some units of the Bretonnian mobility taking quite a bit of damage. And I mean, there are still some units doing fairly well. These questing knights doing good work against the Graveguard. But here is the Ushabti summon into the back line of cannons, and there isn't anything back here to really push them off. I mean, peasant mobs aren't going to do anything, so those Ushabti are going to have pretty much free reign to deal with these cannons. There's no slayers, and the slayers do look like they are trying to peel back and deal with them. Well, the bounce bar is very, very even right now. Crit ghouls are going to be crumbling here, but a lot of the mobility and the front line is starting to kind of falter a bit for the Bretonnians and dwarves, as the Lamian getting on top of King Lewin. Not necessarily sure she wants to take that engagement, though she is supported by the Tomb Guard with halberds, so that is going to be a very nice assistance there. So King Lewin does pull back, seeing those halberds in the area. Otherwise, backline doing fairly well for the Tomb Kings, able to use up pretty much all their ammo on these skeleton archers. This one's still full health, and the Chosen of the Gods have been able to fire off all of their shots as well. Balance power, though, is starting to creep a little bit into the dwarves and Bretonnians' favor. However, we still have some very noticeable threats on the field. We do have the Liber Mortis going down on top of all these units of Tomb Guard with the zombies as well, so not a whole lot of units being caught out, but King Lewin spelling blood, or rather spelling the dead, able to get on top of the black coach of it, doing a little bit of damage, but the cannons are going to be crumbling it, and a few more shots should be able to finish it off. And if we look at the Ushabti summons, able to get through one of the cannon crew, and the other one is taking a lot of damage as well, and it may be able to sustain. It does sustain itself through the summons, so there's still two cannons able to be firing at will. And we'll see how the rest of the frontline engagements are going. Graveguard, 42 models. They are against Longbeards, though, so the Longbeard should win that engagement. And now we have some of the Knights of the Realm getting into these Ushabti summons. They are taking quite a bit of shots on the approach, but otherwise we have more Knights of the Realm trying to shut down these skeleton archers, and we have some men-at-arms, which is actually a fairly decent Bretonnian force, getting into some of the backline units as well. And the Knights of the Realm do falter on their approach as they get shot to pieces before they could engage. Though, if we take a look, the front line, the undead factions, they had an initial push through, but that initial advance does look like it has faltered quite a bit. A lot of the forces have crumbled away. Just the stout sustaining power of the dwarven infantry, the Longbeards, and the Slayers as well, able to just keep everything from getting too far. Rune of Wrath and Ruin going down, slowing down the Lamian to just a snail's pace, as she just cannot engage and assist her Tomb Guard with halberds here. Though she does get a summon off of zombies into the backline, though there is Slayers there, so they really won't be affected by that too much. And King Lewin looking to get a nice little strike off onto that Lamian, does dive down, getting some nice hits in, and now she is going to be poisoned, though the Liber Mortis does go down. Nice little drop there, trying to give her a little bit more sustaining power. And the cannons still continue to sing. And once again, the Bretonnians trying to get on top of these Ushabti with great bows, and so far they haven't really been able to shut them down for a long period of time. They are on top of them, though these Knights of the Realm are wavering and will probably rout before they're able to finish the job. So I think the Bretonnians are just going to have to focus their targets elsewhere, trying to deal with what's left of the Vampire Count's frontline engagements, and deal with the two lords that are left, with the Lamian at half health and Arkan as well on his chariot. The King Lewin should be able to handle that fairly well. Damsel of Life getting Spirit Leech, and that might be enough to finish off the Damsel. She is routing, and she may very well just go down from that spell. We'll see if she does survive the spell, though she might be so low on health that she won't be coming back regardless. Another rally from the Knights of the Realm. They may be able to get in on these Ushabti, who are crumbling now. the balance of power is very much now in the Dwarves and Bretonnians' favor, as pretty much all that is left for the Tomb Kings and the Counts are their lords, and that Lamian is very, very low, and I think she's just trying to run away, jumps on top of the cannon crew, but King Lewin, full health, does dive down with the Slayer support, should be enough to finish off her as she's crumbling and disintegrating, and that should be the rest of the armies as well, as Arkan is disintegrating now, and that is army losses. And RTK will take the 2v2, so the final score will be 5-6. Just the last few units are disintegrating, and despite a little bit of shaky events in that battle, the Counts and Tomb Kings almost were able to push into the back line, though, yeah, with the Dwarvens forces, these Longbeards just held out for so long. I mean, these were almost at full health with 100 kills. Slayers, that's, I think, the biggest thing is that the Dwarven infantry units just were able to stop the advance so well, even though they were pushing through with a lot of units on both sides with the Counts and the Tomb Kings. It just wasn't enough. I mean, the Ushabti did do fairly well. They got a lot of shots off. I'm not really sure about their target priority. Bone Giant once again going out in a blaze of fire as the cannons just absolutely decimated that Bone Giant, just the same as that first round. But yeah, mobility definitely in the big advantage for the Bretonnians. Really surprised not seeing any Blood Knights again. But that is going to be our series for today. We'll update the scorecard to show the final score. It is going to be 5-6 in EC's favor with their win in that 3v3 match. So it looks like everyone has bowed out. So that is going to be our series today. Unless there is any other questions or concerns, I was just going to take a look at the chat real quick before closing everything out. Looks like that is going to be it, though. Again, yeah, thank you all for tuning in to this clan war. I know there is the ever-chosen qualifier going on now, and there are some people going to be streaming that. So take a look over at Dov's channel later on for his streaming of the quarterfinals and finals for this initial qualifier. And yeah, again, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed the series. We had some very good matches today. Very entertaining, and everyone played very well. So, without further ado, we will close things out. Thanks once again, and as always, have a good one.